Welcome to This and That Gaming. My name is Nathan, and I'm here to tell you all about those hopped up little freaks, the ferals. Identifying ferals at a distance is fairly easy because they always walk around on all fours and they're kind of always moving. When they get close, when they get close or they hear the player or see the player, they helpfully make a roaring sound, and it sounds like this. When you hear that sound, it means that a feral knows where you are, or at least your general area. This leaves you with two options because they will be coming to that area where they heard you or saw you. It leaves you with the option of fighting, which I don't recommend if you're fighting anything other than just the feral alone, and running. Now, running is kind of tricky because the only way you're going to get away from a feral is in a car. On foot, you'll never move fast enough to lose their interest, so run for a car and get out of there if you have to run. Now we're going to talk about what makes ferals so dangerous and why you should always take them seriously. Ferals are really fast. I mean really fast. They can clear whole fields and roads in a matter of seconds. So it's important to kind of listen for that roar. When they catch up to the player, they'll tackle them to the ground, which does a significant amount of damage. And then when they're in melee range, they'll try and constantly do this really fast swipe attack. That also does a lot of damage, but it also can put injuries onto your character. So you want to dodge a lot to avoid being able to be hit by that. Another thing that makes ferals so dangerous is that when they see the player and make that roar, that screech, that actually calls reinforcements to the area. Ferals are so much harder to fight when they're surrounded by allies. Well, allies. Other zombies. So what you want to do is kind of kill them immediately. No matter what fight you're in, they're your priority. When they're surrounded, this is significantly more difficult, so try and avoid that. Ferals also have the ability to rapidly take apart car doors. I mean, like, it's crazy. Regular zombies take about 10 seconds to take a car door off. Ferals do it in about 2 or 3 seconds. So if a feral attaches itself to your car, sometimes it's best just to get out and they'll lose interest in the car, and then kind of give them a run around and get back in and drive away, or just kill them when they're off the car. So on to the important bit of the video, killing ferals, starting with melee. Melee against ferals is kind of a high risk way to go about it, but there is a strategy to it, and if you master it, there's really nothing quite as satisfying as taking these guys out with just your smacking stick. You want to start by dodging their first tackle, and then dodge again towards them to close the distance. Start wailing on them with your melee weapon, and they will eventually do kind of a roll away, and when they roll away, dodge again, because they're going to come in for a swipe. And then when they come in for that swipe, keep wailing on them, and you'll knock them to their side, and that's when you go for the execute, and just like that, they're done. Make sure you leave yourself plenty of space when you do this, because when you don't have room to dodge around or they're up against something, it can sometimes be hard to judge when they're rolling away or when they're dodging. And in those situations, you tend to get hit, so try and do it in wider open areas so that you have plenty of space to move and you can read their movements. Another good way to get rid of ferals is by shooting them. Now, there's two good ways to go about shooting them. The first way, which is the simplest, is simply to get them to chase you, and then when they're chasing you, aim for their head and just pop it right off, because they're going to run in a beeline for you. Now, you don't want your aim to linger on the feral, because they will kind of sidestep and you have to readjust, and then they don't always leave you a ton of time to do that. So just kind of don't let it linger too much when you're aiming. Another good way to shoot ferals is to go hunting specifically for them. Grab a scoped rifle out of your supply locker. It's got to be scoped. Doesn't necessarily have to be silent, depending on how confident you are with your shooting abilities. Mark them on the map so that you know exactly where they are and exactly how far away they are from you and when they're moving and stuff like that. And then you want to just get them with a headshot. Now, it's important to note that you can shoot them right up Main Street if you have a high caliber rifle, and it'll penetrate all the way through to their head and kill them instantly. As far as running over ferals goes, they are actually programmed to dodge your vehicle like all the time. It's not 100% consistent, but I'll get to that. A good way to get them with your car is actually to deliberately get them to attach themselves to the hood, not the door of your car, and then run them into something solid. Solid is the key word there. Fences won't do it. It's got to be solid. Solid as in a world object. So anything breakable or movable, it won't work. Now, they are programmed to dodge your car, but funnily enough, you can kind of juke them where you speed at them and then at the last second slow down a little bit and open your door, and they kind of just have a brain fart. It doesn't work every time, but it is possible. And then sometimes their brain just dies and they forget about the whole dodge the car thing and they get run over really easily. Feral behavior around other survivors is actually fairly predictable. They react the same way to survivors as they react to you, as in they'll go in straight for the kill if they see another survivor. However, uniquely among all the freak-type zombies, ferals actually get significantly less dangerous the more humans there are around. This is because ferals were meant to hunt out lone players or human survivors. They weren't meant to fight groups of survivors. So when you have a whole group of survivors kind of running around doing stuff, the feral can't focus on one person long enough to kill them. This gives you an opportunity because they'll basically just constantly be stun locked, and they can't get at anybody long enough to do anything about it. Ferals like Juggernauts aren't a very frequent spawn, at least as far as compared to the other freak types. When your character detects them, they'll yell like "freak over there" or something. It'll add their map icon to the map. It looks like this skinny guy with the bow legs right here. That's a feral on the map. Ferals tend not to spawn indoors. They like to spawn on the sides of roads and at the edges of open fields and things like that. They also really like to spawn during survivor missions. So if you're going out to help a group of survivors or holding off a whole group of zombies, you'll usually encounter at least one feral. So just be ready for that when you go into those kinds of missions, especially the ones with the countdown timers. It's important to kind of keep an eye on them, but in a big group like you see here, it is hard. But again, since they're surrounded by other humans, they generally don't do a lot of damage. They don't have time. Well, that's all I had to say. I really hope you guys learned something. I hope you guys are taking care of yourselves, and, you know, just keep an ear out for those roars so you know when these guys are around, and do what you got to do. All right, you guys have a good night, and hopefully I'll see you next time.